Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here today to discuss the benefits of lightning. Okay, now that that's out of the way, yeah, lightning's pretty strong. This is something I have not seen anyone talk about, in the mainstream of invader stuff, really. And I don't think it's like a super undiscovered thing that it's strong. It's just that, I've been invading with it on a Dex build for quite a while now, and it has yet to properly fail me in a situation where it should, Like, most of my mistakes are my own to make, but lightning unto itself seems to be doing significantly better damage than fire damage would be doing for strength, or even just a keen infusion would be doing for dexterity, because I'm pretty sure anything past like the halfway mark of upgrading your weapons, the scaling of dexterity is just too poor to matter relative to the lightning damage that you get, especially at like low levels where the split damage is much better than just the physical. I also made a valiant effort to get sleep to work, and what I found was that it was a little too effective in the earlier areas of the game, and basically not effective at all anywhere past like late Liurnia and any of the Altus Plateau. The benefit is that if you can get it to proc, it pretty much guarantees another hit, and if your weapons are damaging enough, then usually that final hit will be enough to finish someone. As you can see, sleep starts being less effective against higher level opponents. You can always increase the sleep amount that is procced by using weapons that have innate arcane scaling, because some of them, like the Ripple Halberd, do in fact increase the arcane scaling through the sleep buff. I don't know how it works, but that is the case. So applying soporific grease to something like Var's Bouquet will net a higher bleed proc than just putting it on a longsword like this. Another weapon I grew pretty fond of was the Serpent Bone Blade, not because of the poison specifically, but because Double Slash was just a really good Ash of War to have on pretty much anything. And on the katana specifically, it's just really strong. It roll catches, and then, if you're chasing someone down, you can just use the running R2. It's a good combo. It makes the katana have more effective moves at the range that a katana is already good at, and gives you something to cover invincibility frames because it's just active for so long. It's nice. Also, it combos. Like, the 2 hits of the slash combo together. I don't think all 3 hits of the second part of the Ash of War all link together, but otherwise, it's a very good tool for doing multiple hits and for building up poison. Seppuku is an Ash of War that is universally known as too strong now, but at the time I was using it, I was kind of unsure as to how good it was until I went ahead and used it myself. And, bleed anything is just really good, except for Eleanor's Pole Blade. Everything but that. And even that isn't that bad. Ever since JM mentioned bows in the network test, long before he made any of the videos when the game was actually out, I had in the back of my head thinking about using bows for as many situations that they could be applied to as possible. And here I see that I am surrounded by 3 opponents, so I decide to use the bow to try and kite them as I would as a sorcerer and split them up to the best of my ability. And I did manage to get one of them to drop down here alone, which is just what I wanted. However, I don't think I really capitalized on this very well at all, because I'm still shooting at the people on the roof. Ideally, you whip the katana back out here and you go to town on this guy, but I was just messing around. So after a little while, I get bored, and I decide that I'm just going to go back up and deal with them, but this knight is blocking the ladder. And then he decides to just stop pursuing, so I'm thinking about going back up. For a while, I was using this Opaline hard tier, which decreases non-physical... Or no, it increases non-physical damage negation. It decreases damage. I couldn't really tell if it was that good or not, but I very rarely took big chunks of damage, so it had to do something. I eventually switched to the second chance tier because I just liked it more, because of Demon Souls. And it seemed to be more generally useful, but I definitely wouldn't knock the Opaline hard tier. As for the crouching obscuring ring, I've had kind of mixed results, because I'm all the way over here, and I'm, like, crouched, but they can still somehow see me before I have even really shot, which was surprising. And I've had situations where I'm very, very far away from someone crouching with the obscuring ring active, and they're just able to pelt me anyway. So I can't tell whether it's working or not, because the distances seem to be very odd that it functions. But when it works, it works. This whole invasion is kind of messy, but it does showcase my initial attempts to do things with power stance, curve, sword, lightning. I have Bloodhound Step on, because this was before it was socially unacceptable, and I was having fun with it. Yes, it is entirely broken. Should you use it? Well, who cares? At this point, who cares? Probably not. I'll probably stop using it. But honestly, with the power of some summoned phantoms, I would not entirely blame you for using it sparingly, or even regularly, especially when many of them will be using it themselves. Lightning Slash is just a badass weapon art. I would really just use it to buff the offhand, because buffing both of them is annoying and impractical, and takes too long, and the buff only lasts like 12 seconds anyway, so I just kind of buff and then I rush. And that has worked out for me very well. And as you can see, the damage is very impressive. Very impressive. So if you're bored of Bleed and you want something that's probably not going to get nerfed, I recommend Lightning. This delightful fellow here in Ronnie's hat is soul level, like, 384, something like that. I don't remember the exact number, but it was something absurdly high. And I realized that because when I hit them with my lightning-paired swords in water, they took very little damage relative to what people usually take at this level. And also they're doing, like, almost half of my health with one of these Duelist Moonblades, which I also did not expect. Like, look at the damage on that Glintstone Ice Crag. Just a bit much. A bit much for this level, which is 40 plus 8. Right there is when I realized that something was amiss, because usually that running L1 does a lot more damage than that, and I don't really think that it should do more damage than that. But that is the world we live in, and that is the case. So I was just kind of going off of prior knowledge of what normal health values were and normal defense values were for this level, and that told me that that person was overleveled without even killing them. And then when I did eventually end up killing them, I was able to determine that, you know, they were an overleveled. So for the next few minutes, I pretty much just try to run this guy out of FP, because I know that he is summoned, and I know that he's not the person that I invaded, so he has a limited amount of FP, so my hope is that I can get him to blow all of it, and then I can just go in on him, which I believe is what ends up happening. And, you know, after enlisting the help of these marionettes and as many lobsters as I could find, and just whittling and whittling and whittling at this overleveled person, I was finally able to get in on them and kill them, but God, did it just take forever. And to be honest, it really didn't take that long relative to how long it would take, you know, in like something like Dark Souls 3. But it took longer than the average was taking. And now that I had the host alone, it really was not a challenge at all, because I wasn't getting pelted by ice magic in the back. Funny how that works. I hate this scythe. I see this scythe, and I floor it. It's too good at what it does. Please die. You know, this Duelist Moonblade spell is very popular, but very slow. Very, very slow. Slower than you would expect, really. And that's, good for me, because it's easy to dodge. I lament to say that this is not even the strongest version of this setup, because the Bandit's curved swords are just more damaging, longer range. The only bad thing about them is that they're heavier, so you can wear only slightly lighter armor while using them, and that's pretty much the only downside. Also, you don't get the bleed buildup off the offhand, but you're not really here for that. If you wanted bleed buildup, there are other options. I've found that fire is actually extremely underwhelming across the board. I just don't seem to find it very useful, even on like a low-level strength build. It just seems like heavy infusion would be better. Also, you don't have to deal with rain and water as being issues, and lightning can only get stronger. Also, a lot of armors just have very low lightning absorption, so, you know, it's gonna do more damage. Even on some strength weapons that have innately decent strength scaling, you might be better off attuning a lightning Ash of War to it, and then, you know, just leveling dex, or putting a little bit of dex investment in. Funny how I hated this lightning Ash of War in the network test, but it didn't end up being nearly as annoying as some other things that you could deal with. I will say that one of the redeeming qualities of Caelid is that it is an open field that is at least sufficiently threatening that you can invade in it regularly at several soul level ranges. Something like Altus is universally threatening at pretty much whatever soul level you want to invade at, because it is not sufficiently threatening. You don't have a whole lot of choke points to work with. The PvE is either extremely dangerous in one location, or not there at all for a huge stretch. And, like, much bigger stretches than Pontiff ever was. I would be extremely satisfied if they just cut all of the invincibility out of Bloodhound Step. I don't even care about the invincibility. I'm not here for the invincibility. I like a good movement option, you know? Something that just gets you in. And the one use of Bloodhound Step that I have found that I like more than most things is the ability to just chase people down with it. To be honest, most invasions I didn't even really need to use Bloodhound Step all that much. But there were situations that I just kind of didn't feel like getting one-shot by a Rivers of Blood, or a Moonveil, or what have you, so I did use it. And, you know, maybe a couple of situations where I wasn't going to get one-shot, but I just didn't feel like taking damage, which is the problem with Bloodhound Step, is that you can simply decide not to take damage. I would rather not complain about it, because it is something that can ultimately be dealt with in some capacity. But, like I said, I would rather it just not have invincibility. Of course, if it had no invincibility, there would be some jank on server side that would make it look a little kooky when you get hit out of it. But I would rather that than never getting hit. You know? And then you have the AoEs like this Radon weapon art that's just kind of unavoidable. And, you know, do what you can about it. Which, in my instance, was, yes, Bloodhound Step. Which I would feel bad about in hindsight, but, like, so much is broken that, like, this is only one blip of the myriad of things that are all over the place in this, this PvP environment. For example, this person does have that, but once I start chasing them down, they have absolutely no choice but to take the pressure. I like that there are somewhat reliable rushdown options that allow you to play very aggressively, but I also don't like that they also allow you to play super defensively. So there has to be a way to incentivize the aggression element without completely gutting the defensive aspect of it. Every time I see this weapon art, I'm terrified. Mostly because the first two hits will usually combo. The first two jumps of it. This guy just did half my health with one jumping R1, and that's a little bit too much for me. But he actually takes damage, which is a good sign. So once I know that it's on the table, I am looking exclusively for that weapon art, and I am going to get away from it, and only that. I can pretty much ignore the host here because he's not a threat. And if I really wanted to chase him down and kill him, it would be more difficult with the Hand of Malenia user on me than it would be to simply try to contest the Hand of Malenia user straight up. And thank goodness for half-decent armor, because if I didn't have it, I would have surely perished here. And if you don't roll after the first R1, there's a chance you get blundered. So, that's that. The thing I particularly like about Stormveil is that it is quite good for sniping. Even if you yourself are bad at sniping. Probably would have been better off to use the explosive bolts from the jar cannon or the hand ballista here, but I was just trying to get some use out of the crossbow. And these bolts, these magic bolts that I purchased for some reason, despite not using the full moon crossbow. But eventually, and it always happens eventually, I got bored and I decided to just take this guy head on. My thing that will prevent me from becoming, like, an MLG invader is that I have no patience. I don't have patience. I will never have patience. I want an invasion to be over, like, under the 3-minute mark. Preferably, 5 minutes is fine. Any longer than that is too long. I've got places to be, I've got people to see, I've got things to do, I've got builds to make, you know? Like, can't be an invasion for even 6 minutes. The 6-minute mark is just too long. I would rather die instantly, kill instantly, or die quickly, kill quickly, not even instantly, than have to go through a very long slog of kiting and draining resources and eventually getting some half-ass chase down on a phantom. Like, I greatly value speed and efficiency. And this is not to say that I do not like a difficult encounter, because I do like a challenge. However, you know, at 40 plus 8, you're not really getting the challengiest of challenges. Until you know, get the overlevels. Even though there is no running double slash attack, it's usually effective enough that if you position yourself just right, you will catch someone as they're running in a direction, or as they attempt to roll away from your R2, as you would. I mean, basically you can bait the roll with the R2 and punish with the double slash. The nice thing about the double slash is that it's functionally a multi-hitting attack that does more damage than just an R1, and that is the benefit to pretty much every power-stanced weapon that will combo. Let's just skip past me not using Carry and Retaliation at all, even though it would have finished this job quite quickly. I like the bullet hell aspect of the sorceries in this game, and I'm not gonna lie. I like attempting to weave in between things if it is possible. I do not like it when it is 3 people. But I do like, I like the play of aggressing on a sorcerer that's attempting to keep me out. I feel like there's a very good ebb and flow of that. And Carry and Retaliation, although very badass and very effective, bypasses it completely. Here I've got what is very obviously an overleveled mage. And I only say this because they're using Luzat's staff, which requires quite a bit of intelligence to use. And they're just repeatedly casting Shard Spiral, which is a bad spell to spam. But I'm not complaining. They're casting with the most mana-inefficient staff in the game and wearing a headpiece that makes spells even more mana-inefficient. So they're only casting like a couple of them before they have to back off. As you can see there, my second chance just barely saved me, and I was just out of range to not get hit by another swipe from the Moonveil. 2 point-blank shots from the Moonveil comboed, and did basically all of my health. And now once I've poisoned this guy, I realize that all I have to do is keep the pressure on and he's just going to die to poison. Which happens. And now that I've got the host all to myself, it's pretty much over. It's just a matter of, waiting. Patiently. This is when I finally realized that I could pretty much just keep Bloodhound Step on a dagger if I really, really needed it. I probably won't be needing it very much. But as things stand, you know, you can't really blame anyone. The current environment for both invaders and cooperators is intensely hostile. For that reason. If I'd gotten hit by the first part of it, I would just straight up be dead, and there would be no 2 questions about it. Another thing to note is that if that Bloodhound Step didn't have invincibility, I still would have gotten away there. All you need is the movement. All I need is the movement. And I should probably mention that even if the invincibility does go away, the move is still fundamentally broken because it is faster than running. it is still fundamentally broken as a movement option. But that's why I like it. I feel like there should be a couple of movement options that could be Ashes of War, and instead we have two, one of which is just better than the other. Good games all, and to all a good night. Take care.